What everyday skill becomes suspicious if you're too good at it? Remembering random little things people tell me about themselves. I got a friend her favorite DVD as a random present, and she was shocked by it. I was like, why are you shocked? You told me it was your favorite film 2 years ago. Same here. I was going to Disneyland, and I wanted to bring back something from my favorite manager. I asked her who her favorite Disney character was, and she said Dumbo, because she loves elephants. Skip ahead to 10 months later, on my last day at that store, I got her a card with an elephant on it. She looked shocked and asked me how I knew her favorite animal was an elephant. Yet I can barely remember what I eat for breakfast sometimes. Tying a noose. At basic training, I got asked to help the drill sergeants create their haunted house. Battalion competition, long story. My drill sergeant asked if anyone knew how to tie a noose, and I whipped out a perfect one in only a few seconds. He just looked at me and said, "Private, what the fuck?" I once had a neighbor catch me while I was taking groceries out of my car and ask if I knew how to open locked doors, as they locked themselves out by mistake. I went over to their door, took out a credit card, and shimmied my way into their home in no more than 5 seconds. It was probably bittersweet for them. My boss locked herself out of the shop last week, and I did this. We're getting new locks and a security system now. My in-laws use one of those shitty doorknob locks instead of their deadbolt. So I make a point of every time I come over and use a credit card to get in instead of my key. They still don't lock the deadbolt. I have a very fast reading comprehension. People never believe me when I say that I've already read it and get frustrated that I don't take longer. I can't do simple math, but I read like lightning. I'm also very good with card handling, so everyone suspects that I cheat at poker. I encourage that because it keeps their eyes on my hands and not on my face. Eavesdropping. I just passively listen to other people a lot when I'm alone, even if I'm doing something else. It gets really embarrassing when you bring up information you heard from their conversation, forgetting that you weren't involved, or when you laugh at a joke said by someone across the room. I think it's a weirder skill when people can just zone out of every conversation around them. The number of times that I've been told to stop eavesdropping by someone who was having a conversation right behind me, and not a quiet one either, is just ridiculous. What do you expect when you're talking louder than I am right now about some nonsense Susan in HR said last week? You're not exactly having a private conversation. A lot of my male friends were surprised to see how good I am at removing bloodstains. When they asked why I was so good at it, I struggled to find a euphemism instead of answering directly, because I know most of them find menstruation talk gross. But that moment of pause made them even more freaked out. What kind of guys is this person hanging out with that she can't just say, "Oh, periods," and have that be a totally kosher normal thing? Do guys still get grossed out by this stuff? Really? Walking silently. It's a good skill to have to be able to be quiet in a moment's notice. But do it too well and you start appearing behind people and freaking them out. You get the question, "How long have you been there?" quite a bit. I'm also guilty of this. I tend to walk more on the balls of my feet because I'm used to a living situation where I'm going to be walking on someone else's ceiling. So when I'm walking around the house, I don't walk heel first. I usually don't even let my heel touch the ground. To me, it just seems courteous, but I've definitely scared my housemates. I don't think it's an everyday skill, but being able to tell somebody by the sound of their footsteps. When friends or family approach my door, I know who's about to knock. I love creeping them out by telling them to come in by their name. Typing. I type at a little over 150 words per minute. I've been repeatedly accused of faking it, which sounds funny, until it's your coworkers and boss saying it, calling your work into question. I'm a writer. I use a QWERTY keyboard, and I've been typing for a minimum of 3 hours a day for the past 16 or so years. My typing speeds have been measured in varying tests for work and school, the lowest coming in at 138 about 4 years ago, and middling out about 6 months ago at 154. The highest I've scored on any reliable test was 157 last year. Typing speeds like mine aren't all that uncommon, certainly not as much as they used to be. Nothing special, I just type a lot. I find it much weirder that people find fast typing unlikely. It's kinda creepy chatting with someone like that through instant messages. I spend like 15 seconds deciding how to phrase and type out, "Did you like that one movie that came out last week?" And about 5 seconds later, they respond with, "Yeah, it was better than I expected. I mean, it still wasn't the greatest movie I've seen, but I guess I'd recommend it to someone who likes that genre." It's like I'm talking to a bot. In my experience in the US with people who don't have much background in science, being able to convert imperial weight to metric by knowing the conversion ratios makes them think I'm heavily involved in drugs. I wish we could switch already. The metric system is so much more intuitive. Genuine kindness. My father was such a good soul, and people were suspicious about his kindness sometimes. Knot tying. Just tell them you learn from the best. The tight-tanned dominatrix down on 5th, Jackie. She never wanted me to escape, but why would I? Burn me with that wax, Dormina. Hit me with that whip, Dormina. Safe word was onion. There wasn't anything I wasn't willing to do for her when she had me wrapped up like a Christmas present. Well, that story would definitely shut them up. Kind of a weird turn to take with things, though. Knife sharpening. I once unnerved my roommate when she walked into the kitchen and saw me casually humming while sharpening my big-ass chef's knife. What? I just want to maintain my big-ass chef's knife to chop garlic more efficiently.
I chop the garlic so it's nicely coated when I go to skewer the vampires.
Anything borderline fancy with twirling knives. I carry and use my pocket knife quite often and have picked up ways to easily handle them. People either assume that I'm a full weeb or a serial killer. Interrogating someone without them knowing. I was at a school thing, and one of my girl classmates really liked a guy, but was too nervous to talk to him. She asked me to figure out some of his info, and I ended up getting his first name, last name, school, hobbies, and grade level. She was happy, but more than a little creeped out about how casually I did it. I feel like all but maybe the last name is just basic getting to know someone conversation. I can make a sound that is identical to the sound of a vibrating smartphone. It's basically a low hum through very slightly open lips and across your teeth. I used to sit in class and make the sound, and people would freak out and check their backpacks and purses, and the teacher would get super pissed, since having a phone go off repeatedly is distracting. So by an incidental combination of being a gearhead and at one time a tow truck driver, I am a little more observant when it comes to cars than most. I also have a knack for numbers and memorize things unintentionally. I've stopped mentioning to people that I saw their car somewhere or another. The movies, for example. It's awkward explaining that I know your plate and can spot your piece of trash Sentra from across the parking lot. Due to my job in property management and me being a flake that often loses and forgets my keys, I've gotten really good at quickly breaking into houses and apartments. I used to be a dispatcher for home heating fuel in Juneau, Alaska, and when I meet people, I would say, "Oh, you live on such and such street." And I'd always get an uncomfortable silence from them and have to explain that we deliver your oil, I work for so-and-so company. Former garbage person here, and I can confirm that. I struck up a conversation with someone at a bar once who I absolutely hated as a customer. These rotten wastes of skin would throw food and reuse straight into a can that I couldn't put on the tipper, meaning I'd have to pick up and dump 200 pounds of bullshit 6 feet in the air and dump by hand. As soon as I heard his last name, I repeated the first and his address. That prick knew. He knew. He had seen me throw that damn can into the middle of his yard on more than one occasion when I had rotten garbage juice running down the back of my neck because he was too lazy, stupid, or cheap to use a goddamn bag. I asked him politely to use said goddamn garbage bag or two and left it at that. And he did. Recognizing faces. I was approaching the check-in counter of a hotel that I didn't remember being in before when the desk clerk welcomed me by name. I was visibly startled, and his coworker explained, "He's got a freakish memory." I checked later, and I had been there, 3 years before. In his job, with the thousands of faces he sees in a year, that's a little disturbing. I'm the absolute worst at remembering faces. To use a hotel analogy like you, I don't even remember if the bell cap that helped me unload my luggage from the car is the same one delivering it to my room 10 minutes later. I've read that the inability to remember faces or individuals is one of the signs of being a sociopath. Something about not valuing others, or some such nonsense. Joking aside, I was the exact same way at one of my customer service jobs. I just couldn't be bothered to remember who I'd talked to 5 minutes ago. Not me, but someone I know once mentioned to me back in their high school days that they were suspected of being a snitch because they would always be inclined to leave right before the bust happened. It wasn't that the guy was a snitch. He'd say that sometimes he just got a feeling, or he knew when a party was just dead. Some sort of sixth sense for this. Every time he got around to leaving, his buddies would usually follow suit, since they were often the ones dealing anyways. Noticing details about people. I have moved around a lot, and have worked in a lot of industries, one being tourism. If I'm a tour guide and I notice a particular brand of clothing and ask someone if they're from a particular place, and am right, it's me being observant and leads to a fun discussion. If I do the same thing in line getting coffee, it's considered creepy. In freshman year of high school, a teacher accused me of cheating on a test because I finished it too quickly. Ironically, the test was on test-taking strategies. I used to challenge teachers because of that. I always read very fast and I think very fast, which means I take tests very fast. You got it. Teachers always had something to say about it. But I'd say give me a different test. Make up a test right now. I'll do anything, just tell me I'm good enough. And then I collapsed on the floor hyperventilating and sobbing, thereby making the teacher rue the day they questioned me, or the day they were born, depending on their worldview, I guess. Getting over bad feedback and negative events. I have a rule that if something bad happens at work, I can be upset for 20 seconds and then move on. Not let it bother me, except to fix it if needed. People seem to think that makes me a bit of a psychopath. As a guy, being able to undo a bra with one hand while making out with a girl. If you do this too smoothly, she's going to suspect you're a player. Best to fumble at it clumsily until it pops open, but don't fumble too much or you'll ruin the moment. It's a delicate balance. Apparently, knowing drug names. I once told somebody that they could mix ibuprofen and acetaminophen because they don't mess with each other, and they thought I was a drug dealer for the longest time. Butchering. I work professionally with falcons, and for a while I was prepping an average of 15 quails a day from the kill, from frozen to thawed, plucked, gutted, and portioned. It's useful in the kitchen too, for ducks, turkey, chicken. I've also processed venison before. Then when people find out that I work at a landfill, I fly my falcons to keep the gulls out, then they're suddenly afraid to make me mad. Being really good at tongue exercises when you're a guy and a performer, like a musician or an actor. Let's just say that if you're a girl, you want to date one of these guys. My source? I am a girl dating an actor. Doing math in your head. When I was in class and the teacher would pose a problem, I could do it in my head before the others could get out their calculators. Everyone would get annoyed and think that I was cheating somehow. Certain types of cleaning. A few years ago, I was at work and someone dropped a coffee pot that shattered everywhere, so glass and liquid were in a pretty good-sized area. Me and my buddy left to get a mop, bucket, and broom, and we weren't gone long. Another coworker of ours stayed to pick up the glass even though we told him not to do it barehanded. When we got back, he was wiping down a doorknob, and we asked him why he was doing that. As we walked into the room, the entire mess was gone. When we turned around, he had disappeared from the room. The trash had a new bag in it, and there was no trace of anyone ever being there. So in the 4 to 5 minutes it took us to get supplies and fill up a mop bucket, this kid got all the glass shards, cleared the counter and floor of coffee, took all the trash out, and wiped down a doorknob. He should have been a custodian, but he could have been a murderer. I have an unreal drug resistance, but I'm not someone who abuses substances. I can pop T3s like candy. I've been on morphine via IV and didn't feel it. I can drink a ton of caffeine or alcohol and also not feel it. One time I drank a 40 of Jaeger, entirely in Jaeger bombs at a party, and didn't black out or throw up. And I wasn't even one of the drunk ones at the party. It's only for certain medications though. There are a few medications, like sleeping pills, where I get completely out of it on a low dose. Anything to deal with pain though, or anxiety, or a lot of other things, I end up just not feeling them. Now when I go to the hospital and the nurses in the ER see how high my drug tolerance is when I claim I'm in pain, they get very bitter and upset. They think I'm faking pain and am a junkie after drugs. One nurse refused to give me my medication when I was dying of E. coli. I ended up hospitalized for almost 2 weeks. The nurse was in the ER when I first went in, and she saw I was in and then sent home 3 times in the previous few days and saw the drugs I was given and thought I was faking it. She would be late to give me my medication by an hour, and then would do all the stuff like conveniently go on break after she was 1 hour late for another hour. Then after she got back, she would wait another half hour before coming back to give me my medication. My parents were in the room with me, and described the way she came in and giving my hydromorphone as her walking through the door with the needle in hand, taking 3 steps across the room, hitting me with the needle hard enough that my parents could hear a small thud, slamming her hand on the back of the needle, then walking out of the room, all in under 10 seconds. I was in so much pain that I don't remember it quite well. They lodged a complaint with my family doctor about her. In the end, she only gave me medication 3 times in about 18 hours, before my parents and family doctor blew up enough to have me moved to another unit. 2 of those 3 times were another nurse that took over for her the next morning. In that time period, I was supposed to get 1 medication every 3 hours and another one every 6, so I only got 1/3 of the medication the doctors prescribed. To put it more succinctly, a high drug tolerance will make some nurses think you're a junkie and treat you like trash. Honestly, my job. I work as a consultant, which means I set my own schedule. If a client sets me up with some office space, cool. The problem is that the rank and file don't understand the nature of the arrangement. They see a dude with an office who only works 2 part days each week, and they start to get very jealous. It starts by complaining amongst themselves that I'm never there. Then it becomes complaining about whatever will stick, and then they just cannot fathom someone accomplishing more in a few hours than they do all week. I didn't get where I am by watching the clock and dragging my feet, buddy. Now we hop into the rapid fire segment for stories too short to make a full entry out of, but too good to leave out. And these ones are the shortest they've been in a long while. So I'm looking forward to a proper rapid fire this time. Let's go! Being calm. People accuse you of being cold if you're not as agitated as they are. Being a very persuasive salesperson. The removal of stains. Knot tying. Running in high heels. Knowing the precise limits of what the law requires and prohibits. Ironing. I just tell people I'm married. Being able to count money really fast. Sarcasm. It's gotten to the point where no one knows if what I'm saying is serious or not. As an American, the metric system. So guys, that's it for today, and I didn't think we were going to be able to do it, but we almost got this video to 18 minutes. With that said, don't forget to leave your story in the comments. I would love to do a video on them in the future. I'm ReddList. I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you next time.